morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. I'm Minister DJ Dangerfield. It's Coffee with DJ. It's Friday morning. I am so glad and so grateful that you are tuned in this morning as we've been journeying through Psalms 37 and just discussing this chapter. And the cool thing about this chapter is it's rooted in a consistent message. It's a message that's said over and over again, and I honestly believe that's truly what we need is to hear this timeless truth about how awesome God is and this passion we should be having for placing our trust in Him, and that's where the power is. The power is relinquishing control and turning over your trust to the Lord. That's where the victory is trusting in God. And for some reason, it's God's will that when we trust in Him, that's where the all-surpassing power is. That's what Paul was getting at in 2 Corinthians 4:7, when he says, we have this treasure in jars of clay to show that the surpassing power belongs to God and not to us. And that's the goal in the kingdom, is to be God's vessel of power, to be God's vessel of glory. And to be God's vessel of power and glory, we have to trust in Him. And that is the ultimate challenge for us believers. And when we are obedient to Christ, we get in on the power of the Messiah. And that's how we kind of get through the difficulty that we're facing. That's how we get through some of the trials that we're facing. That's how we get through the stuff. That's how we get through the minutia, if you will. And when we get distracted and when we allow our emotions or our fleshly reasons to talk us out of our obedience and performing the scriptures, we disconnect from walking in God's power. A.W. Tozer says it like this: God is looking for a people through whom He can do the impossible. And what a pity that we plan only the things we can do by ourselves. And that's where faith comes into. That's where the trust part comes in. Yeah, that's where the part where you realize you're a vessel, is that God is looking for people through whom He can do the impossible. And we want to believe that. We want to trust in that. We want to see God's face about that. Man, I'm tired of living that kind of life where you almost live your life like you're on your own. We don't want to do that. And that's the whole concept of Psalms 37, is that we would trust God and He would do the impossible through us. And we start thinking about that word trust. It's got all kinds of different definitions in the scriptures. When you go throughout the scriptures, the word trust has all kinds of different definitions and meaning, but ultimately it's rooted in God's character. It's rooted in God's faithfulness. And that's where we want to get to. And when you look at the Old Testament word for trust, there's several different words for trust. The one that's used the most is batak, and that's a sense of to trust, a sense of relying on, like you would a chair, like sitting in a chair. You're trusting that chair can hold you up. The most famous place that this is used in over the 100 times that it's used is in Proverbs 3:5-6, which says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean to your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make straight your paths. That's the most popular place that batak is used. And in a sense, it means to rely on and to lean on. And then another word that's used as trust in the Old Testament is chasah or hasah. And a hasah means to seek refuge. It means to take refuge. It means it's a word that's used in Hebrews to express protection. It's a word used in Hebrews to express refuge, a very, very popular word. And it pops up in Psalms 91:2, where it says, I will say to the Lord, my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. And when you really think about that word, hasah, in a sense, it's a type of seeking. It's that place in your trust where you're seeking God out through the scriptures. That's one way we apply this word, is that it's a type of trust that implies and goes after God for the protection. And it's the concept of seeking safety and seeking security in God. And we have all kinds of things that we seek security in: our work, our money, different relationships. But Hasam is a type of seeking where a person really starts going after the mind of God, and so they can lean on him in a type of way in a crisis. So Hasa quite often is used in crisis and in difficulty. And the last Hebrew term that you're going to see in the Old Testament kind of pop up over and over again. Actually, two of these words pop up in this chapter is galal or galel in Hebrew. And galel means to roll. If you remember that, we talked about that, to roll your burdens, to trust God in a sense where you're rolling over your burdens to him. And that's the word that we looked at earlier this week in Psalms 37:5, a few weeks ago, actually, where it said, commit your way to the Lord and trust in him. Commit, galal or galel, which means to roll your trust over to him. And then later on, that word trust in him and he will do this, that's actually batak that we just looked at earlier. And that's the type of trust where you're relying. So he was actually in Psalms 37:5, he's telling us to roll and rely on God. And those are the three major words for trust: the type of trust that relies on God, the type of trust that seeks God out and finds security in God, and then the type of trust that rolls their burdens over to God. Now, what's my major point today here on this Friday is that your trust will be tested. You will come upon different circumstances where your trust will, at some point in time, you can't just say, I believe the chair will hold me. Ultimately, you're going to have to prove that you believe it by sitting in the chair. And your trust will be tested and getting to that point where you will just either rely or seek God for security or roll your burden over to him is where you're going to have to find and land yourself. There's a picture that I'm going to put on the screen of an evangelist named Sadhu Sadar Singh. Sadhu Sadar Singh. This was a missionary, for a Welsh missionary from India, in the nation of India. And the nation of India had a Welsh missionary who won a man to the Lord, and the man and his family was saved. And persecution quickly came in his village, and they asked him to renounce his faith. And the man made a bold statement when this village was asking him to renounce his faith. He said, I have decided to follow Jesus. And they threatened him. And he said, he later on being quoted saying, though no one joins me, still I will follow. And the man and his wife, Sadhu Sadar Singh, were executed. And some years later, that those quotes were put to words. I have decided to follow Jesus was actually put to words that we sing, and it's quite often used as a Sunday school song. It's quite often used as like a chorus of some sort, but it was actually written in very meaningful, very difficult situation. And this Welsh missionary that was able to preach the gospel to Sadhu Singh didn't realize that it was going to come down to this. And Sadhu's trust was tested ultimately to the point of death. And his legacy and the power of his life lives on today. We sing, I have decided to follow Jesus. Is a very popular Christian anthem, if you will. And it was because one man allowed his trust to be tested, and he passed the test. And so that's our challenge today, that we would believe God, that we would take him at his word. That's the goal, is to believe God, that we would act on his word today. If we're going to say we trust God, we want to get a word from God. We want to believe that word. We want to act on that word. We want to serve others, and we want to serve others. And there's all kinds of ways of serving others. and we want to serve others, and then we want to stay committed. And so we're going to live in the base. We're going to believe God. We're going to act on his word. We're going to serve others, and we're going to stay committed to that word no matter what comes at us. And that's the goal. We're going to live in the turn the bass on, turn the bass up in your life. And I love music, and I like to hear that bass. And so you got to believe God. You got to act on his word. We're going to serve others, and we're going to stay committed. And that's a way that we can rely on him. That's a way that we can seek refuge in him. And that's a way ultimately that we can find ourselves trusting God and rolling our burdens over to him. I'm so glad you've been tuned in all week long. We're going to finish up. We're going to get close to finishing up Psalms 37 next week. So I want you tuned in with me next week. Until then, I'll see you on Monday. Until then, man, if it ain't kingdom, it ain't worth it. Get out there and serve others and stay committed to God's word.